going to ask you a series of questions.
When are Ani and Asya coming? When is Ani and Asya coming?
How are you, Ira? Hey, Ira, how are you? I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Thank you for coming. Usually it's only girls in the class.
Ah,
It means a lot that you've come.
that's so stereotyping it.
I know, right? Thanks for breaking the stereotype.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
No, I've read a lot of books on the Gita. I think it's very interesting.
Today, actually, what we're doing is, sorry, it's noisy. Hold on. Today, we're actually looking at stories from the Bhagavatam. I don't know if you've actually ever heard about it, or the Bhagavatam is a really profound text. So I think it'll be interesting.
You said it's about Krishna's life.
Yeah, it's quite an important text, and yeah, it's quite nice. But Ananya ji's here, and she'll give us the entire background of what the text is and why it's important. Hari Ananya ji, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Here we go.
To see you all after a long time.
I know it's been a little bit of a break since our last class, but Ananya ji, actually Anirudh was just asking if Anirudh is a very old dear friend of mine, and he read a lot of books about the Bhagavad Gita. So I said I'm glad that you're coming because our class has become predominantly female, so it's good to have masculine energy in the class. Yeah. So and Anirudh has 4 daughters. So
Yes.
he's used to being surrounded by a lot of women. So when I told him about Krishna's life, he said, "Acha, okay." So he was just asking about, I thought that Ananya come and, tell us all about the significance of the text and why it's important and things like that.
Yes. So shall we start?
Let's start.
Okay.
Handing over to you.
Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswate Namaha. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. So now we'll start with Bhagavatam. What is Bhagavatam? Who was it given to? So let's start with a little bit of history of what is Bhagavatam. Now, Bhagavatam is a text which gives us in detail about the Almighty in the form of Lord Narayan. See, it is a Puran. We believe in our Vedic culture or in Sanatan Dharma, we are not Hindus. We are Sanatana Dharma followers. Hindu word has been coined by the people later on But actually, whoever was from Indus Valley, they were called Hindus. So actually, that word is Sanatana Dharma. Sanatan Dharma is not a religion. Sanatan Dharma means that it is a way of scientific living that will help us grow, that will help us evolve from our lower, from our basic natures. So actually, that is a way of living that is continuing from eternity. Nobody knows when it started, and it will never end, though sometimes it looks like it will end. Because it is a way of living, it can't end. Somewhere or the other, again, it will pop up because it is the best way of living, as has been preached by, see, there are other religions have their scriptures. I mean, they have some religious book. Maybe we can call it Bible or Quran or Zenavista, whatever. It has been authored. Someone has written it. But Vedas has not been written by anybody. Oh my God, then who has composed Vedas? Vedas have richas or mantras that were seen by the rishis. Those rishis were scientists, great scientists who heard those mantras, who saw those mantras literally manifesting in front of them. And as they saw or they heard, and that is why they are called mantra drishtas. Mantra drishta is those rishis who saw those mantras and they had scripted it in a language form. So that is our Vedas. Those Vedas has not been written. That is why you won't find any signature in any in the Vedas. In any text you take, in any scriptures you take, you won't get any signature of any rishi there. This is the reason. Okay, so because of that, because of this reason, our rishis were those rishis, the scientists who were connected to the eternity. Now, amongst the Vedas, now we have got Puranas also, 18 Puranas. And amongst those Puranas, one Purana is called Srimad Bhagavatam Puran. What is that Purana now? Now, that Purana has been told by Shukdev ji to Parikshit. Now, what had happened at that time? Parikshit was a great king, the king of the whole entire India. At that time, he was the ruling king, and he had got a shrap from, shrap means a curse from a great rishi, that I'm not going into the details of those stories, but he had got a curse, and in that, by that curse, he was to die in 7 days' time. In 7 days' time, a great snake called Takshak, who stays in Patal Lok, even now he is there. From there, he would be coming and he would be ending his life. This was the curse given to Parikshit ji by a small child of a great saint. He was also a great saint, the small child. His name was Shringi. Now what happened? He knew that now everything is going to finish in 7 days. I have only 7 days span to live. So the ultimate question in his mind was, in these 7 days, what should a person do that will be most fruitful and purposeful as a human being? And this question makes us a seeker. You understand? This question should be burning. Until this question becomes a burning question in us, till then, we won't be called a seeker, a mumukshu in Sanskrit. So a mumukshu or a seeker, a sadhak, until he has this question that what is the purpose of my life, when the duration of my life is only 1 week. And this was the burning question. And he went to everybody asking the answers for this question.
And then ultimately everybody came, all those rishis and munis during that time, whoever were present at that time around, they all came there because they knew that now somebody else is going to come. They were all silent. They didn't speak a word. They could have spoken. This is the greatness of our rishis. They don't bring their egos in front. They don't bring their ahankars in front, but they see what is the need of the time at that time. And according to the need of that time, they try to tune themselves to the higher, to the Almighty, and let the higher work through them. They are just instruments to bring in whatever is the plan of the higher. And in this case also, all the saints that were around him became completely quiet, completely silent at that time. And they were waiting for that small young Shukdev ji to come, who is always in the age of 16 years old. And he doesn't have a single cloth on his body. And he has got a dark complexion. He looks like our Shri Krishna Bhagwan. He has got curly hair. And he has not even the loin cloth on his body. He's Digambar, because he's always in the forest roaming here and there. And he's a great renouncer, great Vairagi. He has got great dispassion in himself. And he has the knowledge of the self also. And he is a great devotee of Lord Krishna also. So everybody was waiting for him to come, to enter the scene, so that now he could take over the questions of Parikshit, what was troubling Parikshit. And then when he came, he put up the questions again. Everybody was held, even Vyas ji was present there. Vyas ji was Shukdev ji's father, who had learned, Shukdev ji had learned the whole Bhagavatam from his father. His father could have just went on and on speaking about Bhagavatam. He could have done that. But because he knew that this was going to be spoken by Shukdev ji only, I have to take the back seat. We all have to learn where we have to lead and where we should follow. This is the essence of our life. So here also, now Shukdev ji came in and he started giving all the discourses. He started making Parikshit listen to the whole of Bhagavatam, how this Srishti manifested, how everything came into being, who created everything, what is the material cause of this world, what is the efficient cause of this world, and then again how the Lord manifests at different times, different moments, what are the purposes of his manifestation, how does this whole creation sustain itself, where does it go back again, and then the knowledge also, and then the Leelas of Krishna Avatar also, everything in detail he spoke in 7 days. And now what happened, during that day, how did he get the curse? He was very thirsty. This Parikshit ji, he was very thirsty and he went to this Rishi's ashram. And he was in meditation, he was in samadhi actually. He didn't know that a great king like him has come here. So he was very angry because he was thirsty also. It happens with us also. The day we are fasting, our mind just is out of control. Somebody will ask something and we just burst out. We are not actually in mood to talk also at that time. Similarly, this with Parikshit also the same thing happened. He was very thirsty, he wanted water, and he was used to all that royal treatment and all, and there he goes and nobody is doing anything, no prostrations, no nothing. So he got very angry, and there he saw in the corner of the ashram was a dead snake lying there, and with his arrow he took it like this and he thought that this rishi is just acting to be in meditation. He is not actually in meditation. So to test also, he took that dead snake in the arrow and he garlanded that rishi with the dead snake. And his child was playing somewhere far away and he saw, oh, the king has come. He came running. But by that time, Parikshit had already left. He left that place. Now, when he saw the dead snake on his neck, on his father's neck, he became very angry. And then he cursed that from now, 7th day from now, that Takshak will come because he has put the dead snake on my father's neck. A snake only will come and bite him and end his life. So At that time, he could not take the thirst of a few hours. But now when he was listening to Shukdev ji so intently, he was so engrossed in the whole katha that he forgot to even eat or even sleep or even drink anything. Imagine, that was the power of katha, and that is why the katha or the stories of the Lord Bhagavatam is said kathamritam. Amrit, it is amrit. It is nectar to our mind, to our soul. He didn't remember anything outside. He was completely inside. After around fourth or fifth day, when 10th canto was going to start, at that time, Shukdev ji stopped the katha in between and he told Parikshit, go and have some water at least. Parikshit said, I don't need any water because whatever you're giving me is completely drenching my thirst. So I don't need anything. Please continue. I just am thirsty to listen to you more and more. So this is the capacity of the Bhagavad Katha, Bhagavatam. Bhagavat means what? There are two meanings of Bhagavat. One Bhagavat meaning means the Lord. And the other Bhagavatam means that is that's a tadhit pratyay. Tadhit pratyay means of someone. Like of Bhagwan is Bhagavat. Of Bhagwan means the devotee, about the devotees of Bhagwan, about the devotees of the Lord. Like of Vasudev. Tadhit pratyay, if we make Vasudev's apatyam, of Vasudev is Vasudev. I hope you all know of the difference between Vasudev and Vasudev. They are not the same. Tell me. Vasudev is Lord Krishna's father. Vasudev, whose wife was Devaki. But Vasudev is Lord himself, the Lord Krishna. His name is Vasudev. Okay, like we say Pritha. Pritha is Kunti's name. So Pritha's son is Partha. Like that. Okay, so like Dashrath. Dashrath's son is Dasharath. Like that. So whenever there is of belonging to somebody, similarly here, Bhagavat, one meaning of Bhagavat is of Bhagwan. So this Bhagavat in 9th canto, if you go to 9th Skand canto, there's the whole thing will depict the lives of great saints, great kings, and who were also devotees of the Lord. So Bhagavatam not only means of the Lord, but also about the devotees of the Lord. So we can also get inspired by those lives and we can go forward, we can evolve ourselves from wherever we are. That's the main purpose of listening to Bhagavatam, because this human birth is very rare. And because, why is it rare? Why is it rare? Because we can get a very big thing through this body. And if we know what we can get in this body, we will make it purposeful. Otherwise, whatever we are into the world, we engage ourselves into activities, we marry, we have children become old, they also get married. All these things even animals do. What's the difference between those animals and between us, human beings? We should have some difference at least. So the difference lies here, that we can get something beyond this body, beyond this world also, only in this body. All other bodies, like an animal body or like a plant body, those are bhoga yoni. Bhoga yoni means what? Whatever comes to them, they have to undergo. A cow cannot fast even if it is Ekadashi. That we can do, but the cow cannot fast. Even if it is eating grass, still on Ekadashi, still it won't have punya. It won't generate virtues. If we can take another, opposite example also. If one snake bites a saint, it won't incur any sin. If one lion just tears apart a very good soul that is passing by, it won't incur sin. That's a bhog yoni. Only it is meant only for bhog. Whatever will come to them, bhog means what? Whatever is coming to them, they have to undergo. Whatever good or bad fruit, they have to undergo. We have choices, but they don't have choices. We can control our mind. They cannot control. A cat cannot. Look at the gusto with what it drinks the milk. Imagine, we can't, even if we like milk, but still we can't drink. And after Namami told me, after Ira told me, after that I have left milk also. So no milk from now. So in this way, these all animal bodies are only bhog yonis. They have to undergo whatever circumstances they are in. But we as human beings, we can generate ourselves, we can evolve ourselves from wherever we are. From wherever we are, we can evolve ourselves. This is the purpose of this, and that is why we can generate punya in this body. You see, we have the capacity, we have the emotions, the feelings for our parents. But now just compare to the animal kingdom. If a cat or a dog, when it grows old, it does not remember that this is my mother. You understand? They don't remember, and they won't serve. Rather, many times they are crossed also with each other. You understand what I'm saying? But here, throughout our life, we have reverence, we have respect, we serve our parents. And that will generate virtues, that will give us punya, that will be helpful for our evolution. So the only purpose behind this body is to go beyond this body, to know something that is beyond this body, to know something that is not perceived by our sense organs, all the sense organs. And that capacity only this body has. And Bhagavatam takes us to that knowledge through which we can evolve ourselves for a better future. Okay, so now we come to this was the background of Bhagavad. Any more questions about Bhagavatam? This is a basic. There are 10 topics in Bhagavatam. I'm not going into too much of details in that. So as the canto evolves, there are stories and there are many things, and it's very, very interesting. One of my favorite topics is Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, very beautiful. And 10th canto is called the Pran, the heart of the whole Bhagavatam, because all the stories of Bhagavan Krishna appears in 10th canto. So it has got in total 12 cantos. And the story of Bhagavan comes in the 10th canto. So all the saints say that from 1st to 9th cantos are preparation so that we can understand the Leelas of Bhagavan. It is not at all, I'm telling you, it's not easy to listen to Bhagavan's Leelas or to understand Bhagavan's Leelas. If we see his Leelas, I'm telling you, we won't believe. We won't believe. We will feel like in his era also, when he was here, many people called him Mayavi. And Shakuni also was one of them. Duryodhan was one of them. They never believed. They saw the miracles. And that is why I'm telling you, it's very difficult. And that's why from 1st to 9th, it's only preparation of our mind so that we come to a conclusion that no, this Lord, who is he who's doing these miracles? Who is lifting the mountain up? Who is dancing on that big serpent? Who is going and doing ras? Who's that? He is the creator of the whole world. He is the power behind everything. He's not just he's appearing as if in a human body. He is not that. And the gopis, they are the acharyas of prem. They are acharyas of bhakti. They knew this. They knew about this, that who this Lord is. They didn't have this buddhi that he is only a Gopika Nandan. He is only a a person, a human being. No, they all knew that he was Lord himself in this form. So that Almighty can take any form, and he can, because otherwise he can't. If he doesn't take, like many other religions, they don't feel the avatar is real, the incarnation. The Lord cannot incarnate. If the Lord cannot incarnate, then our question is that he is incapacitated. He is not in his full capacity. How can you say he is omnipotent, he is omniscient? How can you say that? He can't be omnipotent then. If my requirement now is that I need him in some form, and if he can't come in front of me in that form, if I have devoted myself, I love my Lord as a small child, suppose, and I love him as a small child, but he cannot come in front of me as a small child, then he has less power. That means, because he doesn't have the capacity to come in front of me as a small child. And that is why that Lord has all the capacity in any form, whatever form we want him, he will incarnate in front of us. He will come in front of us in whatever form we want. That is his capacity. Okay, so he is all powerful. So this is our belief that in whatever form, and there are so many avatars, and he comes and protects all the devotees with whatever bhav, whatever emotion we go to him, he will take that form, he'll come in front of us, and then he'll guide us at that moment. In front of Mirabai, Mirabai was given. Mirabai was a devotee from Rajasthan. You all must have heard about her. She was a great saint and a great devotee of Lord Krishna. And at that time, because of her all this devotion and everything, her in-laws got very bad temper. They were not very happy, and then that's why they sent some poison. The poison converted into nectar. So that was also an avatar. He can convert anything to anything. That is his power. That is his omniscience. That is his omnipotency. He can do, he's almighty, he's all powerful. He can do anything, he can convert anything. So we can't imagine his powers if we say that he cannot come in front of us in that form. He can take the form of a pig also. Tell me the name of that avatar who came in the form of a pig. He can come in the form of a tortoise also. He can come in the form of a fish also. Tell me the names. Pig form. Varaha. Yeah, remember? Varaha avatar. So at that time, the purpose was to take out the whole Prithvi, the earth. He had to take it on his snout, and then he came and he placed it in the circle like that. And then another was Kurma avatar. Kurma means tortoise. He can take any form, anywhere. And because he's everywhere, he doesn't need to have a mother. Doesn't need to have a womb from where he has to come out. No, wherever he has, if we are in trouble, only person that can help us is the Lord, because he's everywhere. He can manifest from anything, anywhere. And that's why in Narsimha Avatar, he could come out from the pillar. Pillar was his mother at that time. He doesn't need anything. He can become a fish, Matsya Avatar. He can become a kurma, tortoise. Anything, whatever we want, whatever we think, whatever we can think, he can become. He can come in front of us in that form. So it's like that. So this was about Bhagavatam. So shall we move ahead? I wanted to tell you about the story of Kardam Rishi and Devahuti, who had a son, again incarnation of Lord Vishnu, who came in the form of Kapil Muni to give the knowledge of Sankhya Yoga. Have you heard about this story, anybody? No? Okay, it's good for me if you haven't heard. Okay, so now shall we start the story? Okay, we have 15-20 minutes left. So from where shall I start? In the beginning,
there was only Brahmaji. Who's Brahmaji? The creator of the world. Okay, the creator of the world, Brahmaji. Now he was only there. He started creating the whole world. So at that time there was no question of population explosion or anything. Nobody was there. So he thought of creating a whole population. So for that he created some Mansik Putras. See, there are many types of creations. At present, what we feel that there is only the creation, what do you call in English for methun? Reproduction through coming together. What is that word? You understood what I'm saying? A male and a female, they come together and then they reproduce and the family continues. This is not only one way of, there are so many ways of procreation. And one of the ways is mental procreation. With the sankalp only, with the thought, his resolution was so powerful that he thought about a son and the son came. Narad Muni, he is Brahmaji's Mansik Putra, created by mind. There's another Putra called Nad Putra. When we have our gurus, we are all our gurus Nad Putra. Nad means sound, knowledge, Gyan. And Bindu Putra. Bindu Putra means like our general, our parents, our physical parents. Okay, so these there are many more categories, there are many more creation ways of creation. So here he thought about creating. So now if you have heard about Manu and Shatrupa, they were the first Prajapatis. They were the first couple created by Brahmaji, so that he can continue the creation. Now they had 5 children, Manu and Shatrupa, the oldest couple. Can anybody tell me the names of those 5 Manu Shatrupa's children? They're very famous.
Daksh. Prajapati Daksh.
Daksh was the son of Brahmaji, direct son of Brahmaji.
Okay.
But Manu Shatrupas, Manu, Prajapati Manu, Swayambhu Manu and Shatrupas, they had 5 children, 3 daughters and 2 sons. So 2 sons' names were Uttanpad and Priyavrat. Uttanpad's son was Dhruv. You must have heard Dhruva's name. Uttanpad was Dhruva's son. Okay, so Uttanpad and Priyavrat were 2 sons and 3 daughters, Devhuti, Akuti and Prasuti. These were 3 daughters. Okay, so now we are just going to concentrate on Devhuti. We are leaving all those because they all have their own generations and the whole story comes from there only. So now Devhuti was the daughter of Manu and Shatrupa, and she had all the signs of yoga. All the signs, her posture, her looks, her mind, the way of behavior, her control, everything. So now Manu was thinking that, and she was very, very pretty, very beautiful, divine. So now Manu was thinking about whom to give her in marriage. Because if she was given to some bhogi, then her yoga won't be used in her evolution of her future. But if she was given to a tapasvi, a renouncer, who is not only a bhogi, then she can evolve further. So now he was just thinking about it. So let's park this topic here. And again, we come back to Kardam Rishi. Kardam Rishi was another Mansik Putra of Brahmaji. Now this Kardam Rishi, Kardam Rishi was um, he was asked by Brahmaji to do again more creation because he was also Prajapati. So now before creating the world, he thought, let me do penance. For everything they used to do penance. What is penance meant for? Penance is only to purify ourselves so that we can hold the bigger resolution. Penance is not only for penance. Penance is for a higher motive, that is so that we can tune ourselves to the higher. What am I meant for? What is the purpose of my life? So he did tapasya for many years. At that time, the lives of people was too much. They used to live in thousands, 10,000 years, 30,000 years, 40,000 years, like that. We can't imagine now. See, one more thing I want to share with you all, that what is the definition of Shastra? Shastra is Atindriya Vishaya Shastra. The paribhasha of Shastra. See, whatever we see now, whatever we perceive now, that is proved by our pratyaksh praman. Whatever we are seeing, we can prove it through our eyes, or through my ears, or by touch, or through smell, or through taste. 5 organs. That is called praman, means of knowledge. But what is the means of knowledge for heaven, for hell, or for Atma, or for Bhagwan taking reincarnation? What is the proof? Nobody has seen, nobody has gone to heaven. Only after death they go to heaven, they say. So for anything atindriya, for anything that is beyond our perception, for that we need some proof. How will we prove it? So for proving that thing, what is atindriya, what cannot be seen or perceived, is only the scriptures, only the shastra. That will testify that no, this kind of thing is there and you can get it if you go through certain process. So here also, when the Kardam Rishi, he started doing tapasya, penance, and for a long time he did that. Now, not going into too much of details, Bhagavan came in front of him. Lord Narayana, he gave darshan. And what is his vehicle? Lord Narayan's vehicle? Tell me. Vehicle of Lord Narayan?
Is it a
Yes, yes, Garudji. So he was sitting on Garudji. And tell me one more thing. When the Garud's wings fly like this, flap, which sound emanates from him? When the wings are flapping like that, at that time, what is the sound that comes? Of Samved. He has got a musical instrument also along with the vehicle, like we have in our cars. So similarly, he came and he was situated in the space only up. He didn't come down. And he was already in tears because he was doing tapasya and waiting for so long. He wanted Lord to be happy and he was doing his tapasya. After he came, he said, okay, I'm very happy. Now ask whatever you want. But Lord Narayana, he's inside also as our Antaryami. So he said, Bhagwan, Prabhu, you know whatever is in my heart. So, but still, if you want that I should I should speak up, I want a wife who will help me grow, who will be my friend, my accompanist in whatever my life. So he said, I have already planned everything about it. You don't worry because I know about it, about your desire, and I've already planned. And 3 days from now, Manu and Shatrupa will come to visit your ashram along with their beautiful daughter named just now we saw, named, who had the Lakshana of yoga.
something from Dev.
Yes, Devhuti. Good. Good. So Devhuti was to be brought now. So, but before leaving, Bhagwan also said that I will also come as your son. I will also come as your son to propagate Sankhya Shastra, which is already unmanifested. So I want to manifest that again for the seekers in future. They will help, that Sankhya Shastra will help. Sankhya Shastra is a great help for all the seekers. We will see now. So I'll take it in very short. Today we don't have so much time, but we can continue about this story again. So now the interesting topic. Now he did pranam. Before leaving, Bhagwan, he was doing penance in Bindu Sarovar. It is in Gujarat. Okay, and there was Saraswati Nadi also, the river Saraswati also at that time. Now she has gone underground. But at that time it was there. The Bindu Sarovar, he was doing penance there. And before leaving, Bhagwan's tear drops dropped there in that Bindu Sarovar. Why was he upset? He thought that after doing so much, it was in thousands of years that he did penance. But what did he ask for? He didn't ask for my bhakti, devotion, or liberation also. What he asked for all these material things. He was very touched by that. So, but again, he left. Now he was very joyous and he came to his own ashram. And naturally, after seeing the Lord of all the three worlds, he had become very lean and thin. But now after that, again, he regained all his lost energy. After so many long years of tapasya, can you imagine? So he was sitting there in his ashram. And shall we go ahead now? They are going to meet. So now Manu and Shatrupaji came in their chariot, and along with them was Devhuti Ma, very beautiful, pretty looking girl. She was a princess. And Prajapati, Manuji was the king of the whole world at that time, whole Prithvi. So she was a princess. Now she came and they prostrated each other, and then they spoke to each other. Manu and Kardamji, they were speaking to each other, and they spoke very nicely. And the way they have spoken to each other, that's really, we should learn how to speak with each other at that time. From there, so he asked, okay, are you fine? Kardamji asked, I hope you are undergoing all those responsibilities of a good king that a king should have. Only then, if you perform all those responsibilities, all the devtas can enact from you. You'll become an instrument through for them. So he said yes, and all those things very nicely. Now Shatrupa and Devhuti, they were outside. So they came inside. So this Kardam Rishi offered one seat. Whenever anybody comes to our house, we offer a seat at least. So if we don't have anything, it is written in the scriptures that at least we should, if we don't have any chair or anything, at least we should give some asan so that he can sit. We should actually give water also. If we don't have anything edible at home, still water and a seat should be given. Now Devhuti was given a seat. Now see what she does. After the seat was given, Shatrupaji came and sat there. But Devhuti was thinking whether I should accept this seat or not. Because all these people are elder to me. So is it proper for me to come and sit in front of them? But because he has given me the seat, if I don't accept the seat, it will as if be a disrespect to a very respectable person. So I don't know what to do now. Then she just touched the seat, asan. She just touched it and she said, thank you, like this. And she stood behind. And this changed Kardamji, and Kardamji decided, he took a resolve that only Devhuti will be my wife. Because of this action, because he came to know that how humble she is, being a royal princess also, how humble she is, and how much there's capacity to renounce, and there's capacity to serve, and there's capacity to become small in front of big people. When we become small, the knowledge will come to us. The knowledge also, like energy, flows from higher to lower level. Similarly, this knowledge also comes from higher to lower level. And that is the scientific reason for our prostrations. Why do we prostrate elder people? Why do we touch the feet? Because all the energy flows from up to down, from higher to lower. And that's why when we bow down in front of a lord or in front of anybody higher, at that time, the energy flow comes from up to lower, down. So similarly here also, because she just touched the seat and she moved from away from the seat, she was standing there only. She was listening. And then after this, Kardamji said, okay, what's the purpose of your arriving here? He knew everything, but he didn't say anything. So he said, no, I have one daughter. He gave all this introduction. I have one daughter called Devhuti, and she has heard a lot about you. And who was the person who told Devhuti about everything about Kardamji? It was, as usual, Naradji. Naradji is there also. So Naradji had gone to her and told her about how spiritually evolved he is, and about his powers and everything. So, and how good he looked. He was also very handsome. Huh? Not that Devhuti ji was only very beautiful. He was also very handsome. So in the first look only, Devhuti had decided that no, he's going to be my husband. So said, okay, fine. So now he said that Shatrupa, no. What is father's name? Manu. Manuji said that my daughter, she wants to marry you. And I have heard about you that you are not a Naishthik brahmachari. Naishthik brahmachari like me. Like me. I have this cloth on. I have taken the path of complete renunciation. But with him, it was not like that. He is not a complete brahmachari. He will go through grahasthashram and then he will go to sannyasashram like that. So many of our rishis, our saints, used to go into grahasthashram also, and from there they used to renounce. So similarly, I've heard about you that you're not a Naishthik brahmachari and you also want to marry. So the proposal is from my side. Can you accept my daughter in wedding as your wife? So when Kardamji saw, he didn't get very excited. So yes, I was waiting for you. Nothing like that. And he said, okay, but I have one vow. I have one condition. If the condition is all right with you, if the condition suits Devhuti, only then I can marry. Said, what's your condition? Devhuti was also listening. He said that I will stay in Grahasthashram only till a son is born to your daughter. After that, I will renounce everything and I will take to the path of sannyas. If it is agreeable, if she agrees, only then I'll go for this proposal. But Devhuti ji was completely in love. She could see nothing now. She said, yes, I agree everything. She didn't say like that, but she was smiling. She was looking down. So Shatrupaji saw Shatrupaji asked, her mother was there with her. So he asked, and then they understood that she agrees to this proposal, the condition also, and they got married. And after the marriage, they left. Who left? Manu and Shatrupa. They did everything, whatever, and they left from there for their kingdom. And here are two people. One is a princess by birth, by all the actions, and here is another saint who has nothing mean, literally, he has nothing, only one small cottage and also a tree under which he used to do his tapasya. Like that. And now they're going to stay together. And about their Grahasthashram, we will continue it next time. How they are staying, how she serves, what all fruits she got, how the kids were born. And then after she got 9 children, 9 daughters, the son was Kapil Muni, who was the incarnation of Lord himself. This we will see in the next episode. Till then, bye. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay. Thank you so much for listening patiently. And we will see you again.
You left us in the lurch. Thank you very much.
Any questions you can ask me next time.
Thanks, Ananya.
Okay. Hari Om. Bye.